Hello, so this is the first in a series of screencasts I'm making, showcasing building a project in Mixture. I'm going to build a basic event website and I'm going to go through each part of it. So I've already created a really basic outline of my project. You can do this in Mixture just by starting Mixture and choosing the empty boilerplate, but I've just gone through and set out my structure and my folders, how I want them to be. So I'm just going to open out in Mixture. Okay, so Mixture's running on that project, and I'm just now going to open this in Sublime and show you around my project. So let's get a few windows ready. So I have my assets folder, and you can rename this to whatever you want, and in there I have my some set folder structure, my CSS, images, JavaScript. I have a models folder. I'll be going into models in Mixture in a bit more detail in future screencasts. And I have my templates directory, which includes some standard folders, includes and layouts. There's nothing in there apart from one layout file at the moment, which I'll show you in a minute. And then I have a favicon icon. I have my mixture JSON, which is my mixture settings file, and I have a README markdown file, which I'm going to be using when I publish to Git, because I'm going to push the whole repository up to Git as we progress through the tutorial. So, okay, firstly my layout file. So it's just a basic HTML file, a basic HTML structure. So I'm going to start to build a few templates around it, just get things moving, and show you a few of the Liquid tags that you can use. I mean, there's a lot to Liquid, it's very powerful, but I'm just going to go through basics for now. So first of all, I want to set some regions or blocks within my layout that I can inject my page content into. So the first one I'm going to do is a title. So I need to create a block for this, I think. So I'm going to create a block that I can call title. You can call them whatever you want. So I'm going to close that block off. Okay, that's my block. Now if there's a block in the page that's loading this called title, it will inject its content into there. But I can also set some default. So I'm going to call this event project my default title for every page. But I can override that on a page by page level. So that's that. I'm also going to go in and set a content block for content. So I always tend to call this content, so let's do that. Block content. End block. There we go. So that's my layout starting to take shape, and I'm going to go into my templates directory and create my first page. So I'm going to create the index page. So let's do that. And in here I'm going to create a block content as I did in my layout. There we go. And I'm going to call this index.liquid in the root of my templates directory. That's good. And I'm just going to put a p tag, which is going to say home page. So it's probably a good idea to open the settings now and just explain a little bit what's going on here. So this is the Mixture settings file, and we can see here we have template default layout. So this tells every page within Mixture to use the default layout, which is called layout, and you can see that here. That's the one we've just been editing. You can override that and change it to whatever you like. You can also change it to none, which means every page won't have a layout file. But a page can override layouts on a page by page level, so you can tell a page not to have a layout, or you can tell it to use a different layout and create various different layouts in here. I have my template default page, which is index, which we've just created, and you can rename that to whatever you want. And we have template directory, which is called templates, and you can see that there. I can rename that to whatever I want. The only two things that are hard coded here are includes and layouts. They must always be called that within the root of the templates directory. Okay, up here we have preprocessor locations, and we've set that to assets, so that's there. This just tells Mixture that we want it to pre-process anything within that directory. And then we have script output and style output. So this just tells Mixture when it's pre-processing, say coffee script, then we want the output to end up in scripts. And I'm going to change that to JS because actually that's incorrect. And then we have style output, which tells mixture, if it compiles, pre-processes, Sass, less, or stylus, or any of that kind of stuff, then I want the output to be within the CSS directory. And this is good because it keeps my project really tidy and clean, but you can do what you want. You can also, on the pre-process locations at least, you can comma separate them and really specify what you want to happen in those directories. Okay, minification happens by default, so minification happens in place. So if there's a JavaScript file, it will minify it. If there's a CSS file, it will minify it. If the preprocessor outputs to the CSS location, then it will also create minified versions of those CSS files. Okay, so that's it. That's basically set up. I'm going to check what things are looking like so far. So here we go. We have home page that we just created. And if I try and go to any other pages, then we should get a 404. I can override the 404, but I'll go into that in more detail in future screencasts. So we're all running. I want to do an include here, so show you how to use includes. And you can call includes from anywhere. So I'm going to go in and create a header for my project. And I'm going to call it include header. Like that. So Mixture is going to complain at this point and say, hey, there is no file called header, so let's go in and create that. And this is just a standard liquid page. So let's create the markup for this. So we do a header. You can do what you want in here. And let's do this event project. And we'll drop that into our includes folder as header.liquid. There we go. And you can see already our page is updated, so it's now inheriting the header. So that's great. So I think we want a few pages in here in this site as well. So I'm going to create a couple more pages. So I'm going to create a page called events. So I'm going to take the same content as I have in my home page, and I'm just going to change the title so we know which page we're on. And I'm going to create this as events.liquid in the root of templates. And I'm going to create another one called about. Again in the root of the project. So Mixture creates its URLs from the names of the files, of the liquid files you create. But you can also subdirectories, so you can make directories and the URL will become part of that directory. So just for the sake of showing you what I've done here, if we go to events, you can see these pages are now coming up, and that's great. So I want to put some navigation in, make it easy for you to navigate around the project. So I'm going to go back to my header, and I'm going to add some code here. So let's do that. Just keep it really simple for this first screencast. Just going to use simple A tags. So I'm going to point to the root of the project, and I'm going to call that home. And events. There we go. So straight away we can see our nav is now in place, and I can click around. It's fantastic. I'm going to drop some styles in at this point because I have some preset styles, really basic. I'm not going to go into much detail regarding the pre-processing side of Sass, less, etc. within this series, but I've created some basic Sass for my project, and I'm just going to drop it into the folder. So I'm just going to drop a folder called Sass, and in there I have a basic setup. I haven't defined any real styles for this project, but I've just put my base settings in, my clear fixes or anything I'm using, mix-ins ready for me to use, settings file for example. So that's great, and I dropped that in, and Mixture detected that already, and it's already created my styles, my pre-processed styles and my minified versions. So now I want to add this to my page, so let's do that. So we're going to do this in the layout file, and we're going to use a liquid tag to do this. You could just call the file in a standard way. I can add my standard style sheet tags in HTML and call the file. But I'm going to do this with a special tag that we have in Mixture called asset URL. So here we go. So let's call that. My style sheet is app.css. So I'm just going to call app.css. So what mixture will do is it will automatically find this for us. So it's a different type of tag actually. Let's do this. Mixture will automatically find any asset URLs by name. So I don't have to put the full path. If I have two files with the same names, and I can be more specific about their locations, and it will find the correct one. Otherwise, it will just find the first one it can find. So that's my CSS in place. And if I was to press save now and view the project, you'll see it just output a string to the full location of the file. And just to explain, it's using the minified version. So when Mixture's not in debug mode, it will automatically use a minified version of the file you call if it finds one. But if I put Mixture in debug mode, then it will use whatever I've told it to use. So Mixture has a couple of filters also built into Liquid. So I'm going to turn this string into a style sheet tag. And like I said, I could do this manually and just create the tag myself, but I want Mixture to help me out here. So there we go. By doing that, you can see it's now running my styles, which is great. It's just the basic styles. Fantastic. And I think it would be really good now if I could show through the navigation what page people are on. And so this is another feature of Mixture. So we're going to tap into the models here. So Mixture has a model system, and the model system has some defaults which every project will have. The model exposes information about the project, so the URL you're on and that kind of stuff, and then you can use that to do some clever stuff. But you can also define your own models, and that's the bit I'm going to go into in future screencasts. For now, I'm just going to use the built-in models. So if we go back to our header, and we just want to basically update this. So we're going to add in some liquid if statements, and we're going to tap into the global model. So we're going to go mixture.url equals index. Then we want to add a class called selected, and then we're going to close it off with the correct tag, of course. There we go. So that means that when we're on the home page, the index page, Mixture will add the class selected to this a tag. So this is the home page always uses the index as its URL. Everything else will just use what the URL is. So to use these on my other tags, then I can just do this. So I'll use events, and on this one I'll use about. There's plenty of power in Liquid as to how you can match URLs. You don't just have to do a straight equals. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. Okay, so that's in, and these should now have selected. Of course, we've got no styles for this, so I'm going to quickly go in and add some styles so we can see how this looks and how it should work. So I'm going to go into my baseline file. Here it is, and I'm going to add selected tag. And let's say we want the color of selected tags to be 666, and there you go. Straight away you can see that effect on the site, so we can now move around and you can see this selecting. So this is a really quick example. We've covered layouts, basic layouts, and content blocks, and you can create as many content blocks, name them how you want, and every page can inject in. And we've covered how a content block can have default content if the page doesn't push into it. And we can show you that really quickly actually if we go into the about page. So at the moment they're also showing event project, and if we go to the about page, you can see the title is event project. But I can override this on a page by page level. So if I go to my about page and I add in a block, title, event project, I'm going to do the same thing again. Let's just get these tags right. And I'm going to prefix it with about, so we know what page you're on, and you can see that's immediately updated. The rest of the pages are just using a standard default. And that's essentially how the blocks work. Pages just inject the content in, and you can override them. So if I wanted to, I could tell this page not to have a layout file at all, and I can do that by typing in layout none. And you can see the page no longer has a layout, so it's gone back to basics, no style sheets loading in, etc. But of course, I can also tell it to use a different layout. So if I had another layout file called generic, I could basically write that and it would load it. So let's just load that back in. So there you go. You can see how that all works. We've covered layouts, we've covered the fact that you can use includes, and we've touched on models, but we'll go into more detail in future ones. But we have a pretty basic site running already in a matter of minutes. Okay, thanks a lot.